Watch out, let me get a shot. Where they at? Where they at? Put on that rooftop. Hey! Give me a fucking 42 in the inside city!
We're east of the riverbed. And, we're taking fire from the west. Roger, stand by, we're popping smoke. Gun runs north and south, west of the smoke, west of the smoke.
Okay, copy. West of the smoke. I'm looking at danger close now.
Give it to me, I need it. You're cleared hot.
Copy, cleared hot.
Welcome to the Combat Leadership Podcast. Here's our host, Mike Etor.
Jeff Kenney, my longtime Marine buddy. We go way back to the basic school. I think 1992 Absolutely. Is when I first met you. And and so you've got a huge background in the Marine Corps. I'm going to let you talk about yourself, but you did 40 years. How many years did you do on active duty?
I was 2 months shy of 42 years.
42 years. You almost made it a career, Jeff. You almost did.
I quit, man. I quit early.
Folded at the end, my friend. Yeah. But listen, we've been talking a long time about this, and you've got so much to offer. And as you know, the mission of this podcast is for you to share insights and wisdom that you gained over your many combat experiences and just your general leadership experiences, because a lot of people, if not most, that are going to be watching this, especially in future years, some of them won't even be in the military yet, but most of them will not have had combat yet. And It's all about making videos, kind of tutorials and lessons learned that we wanted to watch as young Lance Corporals, you know? And so Absolutely if we're talking about combat and combat leadership and how to get better prepared and how to execute better, we're winning, my friend. So with that, I'll shut up. Why don't you give us a good intro starting from the day you were born? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up? Sports? Okay. Why'd you join the Marine Corps? All of that.
Okay. Well, I was born in Hartford, Connecticut on August 31st, 1957. And tomorrow's my birthday, incidentally. It's August 30th today. I'll be 68, damn it. But
tomorrow's your birthday?
Yeah. So, yeah. And anyway.
68 years old?
I'll be 68 tomorrow, yeah.
Because I was going to say, if you didn't tell me your age, I was going to say, Jeff, you look damn good for a 79-year-old.
Yeah, hopefully I won't decrepitude too much between now and then, but
there you go.
Yeah.
Hey. All right, I'm sorry to interrupt you.
That's okay. So my mother was a registered nurse in a coronary intensive care unit in Hartford. And my dad worked in factories. He worked at Pratt & Whitney, he worked at Colt Firearms there in Connecticut. And then he became a respiratory therapist, and he got a job at the Yale New Haven Hospital in New Haven, Connecticut, which is almost close to New York. And so we moved from Hartford when I was about 10 to Meriden, Connecticut, which is halfway in between. It's also where my mom's family was from. And she came from a huge Italian family, Di Pasquale's, 11 brothers and sisters she had. And my dad, Irish guy, who had 6 brothers and sisters. And so there's a lot of Kenney/Di Pasquale's running around. I couldn't turn around without one of my relatives seeing me. I saw Jeffrey do this. I saw Jeffrey do that. So I had to be careful. And anyway, I went to school at Maloney High School in Meriden, Connecticut. And in my before that, I was determined to be a Marine always. And it started as I was growing up. I would ask about, I was an early reader. I read, the first book I read about the Marine Corps was Battle Cry by Leon Uris. And then I would try to reinforce it by looking up history. And that, if you remember, that book was about 2nd Battalion, 6th Marines on Guadalcanal, on Tarawa, and then in Saipan, which was who Leon Uris was with. And so I read about those battles. I read the real stuff, and I developed a fascination for what really happened. what really happened. And at that time, Mike, you probably remember the TV shows they had on. They had the show called Combat with
Vic
and it was about
Morrow.
a squad, right? A squad and Vic Morrow, and so these guys had your typical, European theater, fighting in France, GI helmets and so forth. Except Vic Morrow had a camouflage helmet like the Marines had in the Pacific. I said to my dad, because I was a pain in the ass to my dad about this stuff. I was like 9. Dad, why does he have that? Well, I must have been in the Marine Corps somewhere, whatever. I go, oh, really? And so the Marines got this. That's how you can tell watching newsreels who the Marines are and who the Army dudes are, like in Okinawa and places like that. And so I really got into that. And, early on, I decided I'm joining the Marine Corps. Now, my dad's oldest brother and his next older brother and my dad were all in the Navy during the Second World War.
Mm.
And my Uncle Chet got sunk twice. He was in those battles like around Guadalcanal early on, and he's on a destroyer, and they got sunk. He got sunk twice. And he said to me, Jeffrey, what's this craziness about you joining the Marine Corps? And I said, and their whole experience was just the war, right? And he says to me, look, Jeffrey, in the Navy, you're pretty comfortable, and then you die. But in the Army, but especially in the Marine Corps, you're effing miserable, and then you die.
Yeah. Hey, Jeff, administratively, and I'll cut this out. You're leaning forward into the camera and you're doing this. So if you could just remember, in fact, if you look at me when you're talking and I start scratching my shoulder, that's my signal to you to back up. Okay.
Okay. No
Because
problem.
you're cutting your face off. All right.
Okay. Good now.
Okay. Yep.
Okay. So he says, in the Navy, you're pretty comfortable, and then you die. And then in the Army, but especially the Marine Corps, you're miserable, and then you die. And I ignored him, and I joined the Marine Corps anyway. I joined in 1975, the week after I graduated high school, and I was still 17. And I went to Parris Island in July of 1975. And I graduated from there in end of September of 75. I was the honor man, so I got the blues. And I went to 29 Palms, and I was told, me and 2 other guys, you guys are going on embassy duty. Now, embassy duty is volunteer, but I didn't really like 29 Palms as a PFC there, and then as a Lance Corporal. And so I was like, all right. And the reason was, in those days, Mike, you probably remember, there's a lot of guys who still had 2-year enlistments from Vietnam. And those guys weren't eligible without extending or re-enlisting. And but I had a 4-year enlistment, so I had plenty of time. So I went to embassy school at Henderson Hall from October to December of 76. And in December of 76, I went to Tehran, Iran. And I was there for 15 months. And then from there, I went to Germany. Now, in Tehran, my NCOIC was a guy with a lot of combat experience in Vietnam. He had like 30 months in Vietnam, Purple Hearts. He was a decorated guy. And he was the reason I stayed in the Marine Corps. Because as a gunny, he was very tactically minded. Like he was convinced that someday the embassy in Tehran was going to be assaulted. And we had about 18 Marines there then. And so he worked out plans and everything to react to that with deadly force. And we had like ammo stages and stuff. And we did drills. Half the other Marines there thought he was crazy, but it was exactly what I was looking for when I joined the Marine Corps. Now, if you remember those times, it was a rough time for the Marine Corps because we had a lot of guys. They had this thing during Vietnam called the McNamara 100,000 program, where they brought in a lot of substandard guys, criminals. We had guys who were going through, and I'm sure you have probably the similar experience at Parris Island, who were going through drug addiction withdrawal while they were in boot camp, and who didn't speak English. and who got like pulled out of there because it was uncovered that they had criminal records, felony records. And I was none of those things. And at that time, we had General Wilson, who started to clean the Marine Corps up, raise the standards. We went from having more non-high school grads than any other service to having the least during his time as commandant, and then General Barrow after him. They were very, and I was there just like a guy catching a wave, body surfing. I was there at exactly the right time. When I got out of Germany, I re-enlisted because my enlistment was about up, and I re-enlisted. I was a sergeant. I re-enlisted to go to Camp Pendleton. And I called Gunny Stepp, who by that time had rotated out of embassy duty, and he was the company gunny for Kilo 35. And I said, Gunny, I re-enlisted, and I'm coming to Camp Pendleton. He goes, well, you want to come to 35? And I said, yeah. And so he said, you're going to fly into San Diego after your leave, because I had not gone home for 2.5 years on embassy duty. And I got there, and he picked me up in a Corvette, where there was no like back seat. I had to hold on to my seat back and everything. We drove to the White House, which is where the 1st Marine Division headquarters was, and he bullied the clerk there. The clerk wanted to put me in 1-5. Because if you remember, that's when we started doing the unit deployment stuff, 79, 80. And he says, is English a second language for you? I told you. He's going to 3rd Battalion, 5th Marines. And so I did. And we went to Okinawa on the 3rd unit rotation in February of 1980. But our battalion commander was a guy named James Williams. And he was the CO of hotel company 2-4 when they did Daido.
Okay.
And he had been badly, he had 2 silver stars. He was a great commander, And so I tried for Super Squad, and we got crushed by 2-9. It just come back. And he said to me, he goes, hey, Sergeant Kenney, we're putting this new thing together. It's from the old Scouts and Snipers, but they call it Stay Platoon. Would you want to do that? And I go, yes, sir. I had good guys and everything like that. And so we went to Okinawa, and when we came back, I tried out for 1st Recon Battalion, and I made it. And I went from 3-5 to 1st Recon Battalion in 1980, and that was up in Talaga. So if you saw the movie Heartbreak Ridge, where they were up there, that's matter of fact, where they filmed that, when Clint would tell these guys how substandard they were before he PT'd them, that was exactly our company area, Charlie Company's area. And so I was there for a couple of years. I got orders for recruiting duty. I'm on recruiting duty, and I did pretty good. I went to Colorado, Pueblo, Colorado. I made meritorious gunny, even though I just made staff sergeant, made meritorious gunny, and I'm like, holy cow, I'm 25-year-old gunny. That seems stupid. I remember my gunny, Gunny Stepp, who I worshipped. This guy, he was 29 when he made gunny, and he made it in Iran right before he got to us, and so I thought, and I had good lieutenants. I always thought I could do this. I could do this lieutenant thing. I could do it. And I was interested in it. I'm still interested in it. That really fascinated me. I remember talking to you about that stuff when we met each other in Quantico, because the idea of being able to do that's really the hardest thing in the military to do, to lead guys on the pointy end. Sergeants and lieutenants got the hardest job because they got to close with and destroy. And all that other stuff, there's, all these highfalutin things that you go to command and staff college, you go to amphibious warfare or expeditionary warfare school, and that's all good. But those are the guys who do it. Those guys like Vic Morrow in combat, and that's the guys who are on the pointy end. And guys like General Wilson and General Barrow, they constructed the Marine Corps so it would be advantageous to guys like that sergeant and now lieutenant. So they wouldn't have to worry about dope addicts in the squads. They wouldn't have to worry about criminals and stuff like that. It made the leadership at that level hugely more effective. And so consequently, we had some combat, and you were in most of it. I mean, you were in Grenada and Beirut, and then we had a little bit in Panama with some, small units, and then Desert Storm. And Desert Storm really proved how right General Wilson and General Barrow and General Kelly and especially General Gray, how right they were. Because, I remember they sent the Marine Corps into the teeth of the Iraqi defenses, and you were one of those guys, Weapons Company 1-8. And thinking, the Marines will get all bound up in there. They'll be slugging it out like Iwo Jima, and then we'll do the big heroic thing and wheel around, through the desert and take them from the rear. Well, surprise, surprise, the Marines went through the Iraqis' teeth of the defense like butter. They're coming up on Kuwait within 3 days, and they had to spin the whole thing up, and that's because of those guys. That's because of that attitude that they had, and that was, to me, the apex of my time in the Marine Corps in the early to mid 90s, because we still had that same attitude. And I became an infantry officer. I was in 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines. And then from 3rd Battalion, 8th Marines, I went to TBS, where I met you. And then IOC as an instructor. And then I ended up in 2-2 in 95. And I was a CO at Gulf Company. And I was in a firefight in Liberia in April of 96, April 30th, 1996. It's a company minus sized firefight. We were defending the embassy, and this bunch of yahoos were fighting with each other, and they kind of stumbled up towards the compound, and they decided to attack us. Now, those guys didn't really know who we were. There is a West African peacekeeping force in Liberia that they would just shoot a couple rounds in their direction. They'd get out of the way. Well, they come up and they see, there's obviously a competent military force manning about 8 positions along the wall of the embassy with our backs to the sea. And they tried that stuff with us, and we just shot them. And some of the folks that were involved in that. My company gunny was Frank Spivey, who had been your squad leader, one of your squad leaders in Grenada and Beirut. Outstanding guy. My first sergeant was a great guy named Larry Rosenfeld. My XO is a guy named Jack O'Toole, who you might remember him because you were at the basic school when he went through. And Verge Palumbo, who ended up getting out of the Marine Corps and working with you there in K-Force. Verge was the XO of Echo Company, and he was there that day to do turnover with us. And turns into this blazing gunfight. The embassy had hired unarmed security guys to kind of control the outside area outside the embassy to make sure, but that was like, they were forced to hide because they didn't have weapons. But their boss was an American contractor, retired Marine, Hirsch Hernandez, who I know we both know him too. Another 8th Marines. He was a CO India Company 3-8 when you were in 2-8, I think. And he's just a great guy, and he was there. And so it was this blazing gunfight started around noon and went till about 16:30. And the 2 different groups of Liberian, I guess you'd call them rebels. And they were fighting a civil war, a 3-way civil war. The head of the most powerful faction was a guy named Charles Taylor. And the head of the other 2 was another guy named Johnson. And most of the Liberian people were named, they had like presidents' names. Like Charles Taylor was the head guy. Obviously, he's named after, President Taylor. And the war had started in 1990, and I was there in 1990, 91 too. But we didn't return fire because we couldn't identify where we were getting shot at from. And they had these same faction guys, and these guys came up and they engaged us. And I remember we started shooting people because they're shooting at us, and there was no rules of engagement other than right to self-defense. If someone was shooting at you, you could shoot them. If you were taking fire from position, you could identify it. You could fire him up too. You could shoot at them. And so I had to keep saying over the radio, look, gents, you don't need my permission for every guy you're going to shoot at. If this guy is, he's shooting at you, you can shoot him. You can shoot back, and consequently, the first bunch of guys just gave up. And they raised their hands. They took their magazines out of their weapons. They raised their hands like this, and they walked by. We're on the end of a peninsula there called Mamba Point. And they walked by, and we thought, okay, it's over with. And this was around 1330. And I was getting ready to walk up towards where the embassy chancellery building was. And you're hearing the noise, and I know you know the sound that AK-47s make when they go off, ba-nomp, ba-nomp, that type of thing. And all of a sudden, I heard this like a death ray. I thought, oh no, that's my guys, because these guys had come up and started shooting again, and then it was really on for the next 3 hours, and that's when Verge came in. He pulls on my trousers. Sir, how you doing? It's me, Verge. Like, hey, Verge. Because when Verge was in IOC, he was in my little mentor group, and everything. And and to this day, I'm still real close with him, and But it was really, I learned a lot of stuff then. Number one, when we were in the basic school, there was this push that happened during the 80s called maneuver warfare, where it gave people the false impression, I think, that the Marine Corps considered itself to be screwed up, and we needed to change the way we did things. But the truth is, Marines need to close with and destroy, and that type of mentality, was something that I just wasn't sure of my ability to do it when I became a company commander. I hadn't seen combat before that. And when I first got to be company commander of Gulf Company, I took my company to the field. We humped out there past the ammo dump there in the corner of the hotel train area. I did 2 up, 1 back, 2 platoons up, 1 back. I did 1 up, 2 back. I did a column of companies. I did all kind of different things. And if you remember Eric Mellinger, he too, he was also an IOC guy. He was the CEO of H&S Company at that time. And he put together a group of dudes, some guys he borrowed from Weapons Company, and some others. And I said, just screw it, me. I'm gonna seize the combat town in the middle of, remember that shitty combat town in the middle of the hotel area? I'm gonna seize that. I told him. And every night we stopped, we dug fighting hole. We dug a perimeter defense, and we did it the right way. And you know how Lejeune is. You dig down 18, 24 inches, it's water, man. You're getting the water from China. And we did it every night. I remember my FAC. A guy named Bob Curtis, he's like, holy shit, this is hard, And we did it, and we ended up doing like a raid on an objective on Jarrett's Point, which looked like Italy, if you remember Jarrett's Point, sticking into the New River. We did that, and then we humped all the way back at 01 in the morning. It's like 18 miles. And we humped all the way back, and we went right through Mainside, because you remember in those days we had to hump around Mainside through French Creek in order to get to the field. Well, we didn't have to, because it was 04 in the morning when we hit that place. So, and my guys are yelling at the MP Barretts, "Get up, you homos," and stuff like that. "Get up, you sissies." Look out, some real Marines. And you know what? I let them do it, because they really busted their ass for me, And that type of stuff we did. Plus, with my company, we did a lot of new things when I was instructor at IOC. We did what we call the Room of Pain, which became the leadership close combat exercise, where it's a brutal exercise. Lieutenants are still doing it, and and before they would let us do it, our director, guy who brought me up there, was General Allen, who was a major then. He said, "We're going to make sure this is right before we have lieutenants go through it," which was a good philosophy. But we did that, and we did we did a test to see if Marines were eligible to go through IOC, the ICT, the combat test, and that's the other thing. A lot of running, a lot of coursing, a lot of all the land nav. You remember we did that? We did you were there, and the idea was to make sure that there's something special about being an 03 infantry lieutenant, because the guys who were our first commanders when we first came in, they just went through the basic school. And the basic school used to be like IOC. Like when James Webb and Oliver North went through the basic school in 1968, it was like 5 months had been cut down. It was all combat. Yeah. Very little sword drill and that stuff. It was, that's what it was. And they knew how to do supporting arms. But then in the early 70s, they cut a lot of that stuff out because we started integrating female lieutenants in with the males. Yeah. And there just seemed to be a lot more non-combat stuff that they were. So IOC was developed in 1977 by the guy who was the XO of my old battalion commander. His company XO, Vic Taylor, was the first director of IOC, a decorated hero, former enlisted guy, outstanding, person. He's the one who developed it first. And I think a big part of that first development, Mike, was the lieutenants never got, until they did that, once they cut the basic school's POI, they never got how to do aiming circle for the 81s, how to do timing and headspace for big machine guns and stuff like that, how to do declination for mortars, for the 81s especially, how to lay the gun in, all that stuff. Charge, elevation, deflection, all that stuff you had to do. The way that we had the two plotting boards against each other in the fire direction center, so that when you called in a call for fire, they would change that call for fire into a fire command, which would go down to the guns. And they had to make sure that it was accurate, because you can kill people with your own indirect fire if you're not good. And so they'd have these two. One would do parallel line with his plotting board. The other one would do pivot point correction. And so they would compare them to then. If they both matched up, they'd do the mission. And even so, we had some horrible accidents with mortars. So it was you really had to know what you were doing. And that was what they did with the IOC, where they had they drilled that, and then it just started getting better and better. And it just, and like when you went through way before me, it was good. And when I went through, it was good. And we come out of the things like that. I remember you had a huge influence, you and Dennis Green. One of you guys, you were defense, I think, and he was offense, or is it? Yeah. And my boss, when I come up with this idea to do a mech attack where we strung together ranges throughout the the Quantico training area, and the director after Alan said, I don't know anything about this. You better go run it past Etor and Green, and I did. And you guys are like, yeah, go ahead. I went over and I said, hey, I'm going to do this thing where, the AAVs are going to start at R8. They're going to go through the impact area, and they're going to employ every weapon system we got. And they're going to end up there at David's Crossroads, i.e. R15, do an assault, they're gonna be shooting they're going to shoot out the AVs as they're going through the impact area at balloons that were somehow mysteriously got up in the impact, right? I don't know how. And so that's the type of thing. When I became a company commander, I had all the lieutenants that I had been through that stuff, and a couple of the staff NCOs, and I had Frank Spivey. And I had General Gaskin was my battalion commander. He let me do whatever, he let me do whatever. He never, and I did some things that, because I was a Lejeune guy like you. As an officer, I was a Lejeune guy. And so I knew that most of the company commanders, they're not going to train on the weekends. So you want to get the good ranges like L5, remember the L5, the fire movement? To me, I'd train from Thursday to Monday afternoon. And I said to General Gasson, okay, sir, I train these guys all weekend. And he'd come out and watch Sunday, watch us do L5, watch us do the stuff we're doing. Okay, sir, clean weapons, and now we're going to body spar, because when your guys are fighting with each other and training, there's less likely to have stupid arguments and fight, because fighting develops respect, and you're a Marine, you should know how to fight. You should be experienced and you shouldn't be worried about it, So I was able to do that stuff. It was so rewarding. And I got that, like you and Dennis Green had the Leftwich Trophy, which they give to a guy who did a good job as a company commander. And I think because of the gunfight we had in Liberia, nobody else had one. I got the Leftwich Trophy. I was so humbled by it. I got it, and it was like right after I made Major. I was weapons company CO of T2. I was going to be the 3 for Colonel Patterson, Jeff Patterson. And the guy who was in charge of recruiting command, General Klemp, I think was his name, he said his Naval Academy buddy, General Krulak, was our commandant, say, hey, wouldn't it be something if we put the Leftwich guy in the worst recruiting station we have in the United States? And at that time, the worst place was Pittsburgh, which had fired 5 guys in a row, starting in the late 80s. And I don't remember the guy. I think the guy who I just forgot his name, Mike. I never met him. But Verge was up there because Verge is going to get out of the Marine Corps, and he's from Western Pennsylvania. So he went up there and volunteered to be the OPSO. So I get this call the day after I got the Leftwich and everything, and it's this guy who had like a speech impediment. And he says, is this Major Kenney? I go, yes. He goes, my name's Colonel Blythe. And he said, you're going to be my new CO, RS Pittsburgh, because I'm firing the son of a bitch who's up there now for not making a mission. Because I don't you call up there, because I'll find out if you do, but I'll call you. But when I call you back, you move up there. And so I went to Colonel Patterson and said, sir, and you know what? He said, he kept saying, do you believe me? You believe me? Because that's the type of thing that some of our buddies at the basic school at IOC, they would pretend to be a crazed dude to tell me something I didn't want to do. I got off recruiting duty a year early because I got that MESEP program, in Colorado, and or years before, and like Rumpelstiltskin, Marine Corps Rumpelstiltskin, it came back and got me to do this. And so I called up there anyway. I said, hey, Verge, how's it going? Pretty good, sir. Hey, congratulations on making Major and getting the Leftwich and all that. I'm like, thanks, buddy. Listen, how's your CO doing? Well, and I didn't really know the ergonomics of the station then. He goes, well, I'm looking at him right now. He's just looking out the window. And I go, look, Verge, that guy's getting fired. I'm going to be the new CO. He goes, no kidding. Well, that's great, sir. We'll be working together again. Too bad for Major. Oh, I know you know this guy. But, and I don't know, it was a hard thing. It was a hard place, The reason it was hard is because all the kids moved out of there during the 80s because the steel mills and the coal mines closed down. So people left, anyway.
Well, Jeff, let's
let's,
let me cut
anyway.
let me cut you right there, so we can get into some of the questions, because you've got such, I know what's coming in your background, and that's another 3 episodes right there. So let's and for what it's worth, when I saw your name come out on the message traffic for the Leftwich Trophy, I was like, that's right. And I've told you this before, among Leftwich recipients, we've always considered you the first female recipient of the award, And so It wasn't just the Leftwich that got you to Pittsburgh. They also wanted to emphasize more female RSCOs out there. So you were a double whammy for them.
Yeah,
so good on you.
Lori Reynolds was right next to me over in the other half of Pennsylvania,
Yes, absolutely. And that's a whole nother story. We won't get into that one, but I know the deal on that one. So anyway, Verge, let's get into some of the questions here. Back to combat leadership only. If you were to have to sum it up, somebody accosted you in the elevator and said, "Oh, Colonel Kenney, what's your philosophy on combat leadership?" What would you say in less than a minute? Bottom line, I could talk all day on it, but you got to do this. Here's my philosophy. What is it?
Well, company level, basically company level, that's leadership by example. You're actually with your men. You're not operating through a staff. You have to actually, they have to see you. And when I was doing training, I rarely gave orders to my individual Marines. I gave orders to my lieutenants and to my staff NCOs, particularly my first sergeant, my company gunny, but also the weapons company, the weapons platoon, platoon sergeant, guys like that. So that when we were in combat, now I'm giving personal commands to Marines sometimes because the bullets are flying and stuff, and you have to, if you're always given little orders, they're used to you telling what telling you to do, and sometimes there'll be conflicts. So you don't want to rob your subordinate leaders of their authority and their wasta, as we used to say in Iraq and stuff, by doing this. But when the actual stuff is happening, now I'm moving from place to place, and I'm telling them to do things. I'm not overruling the guys who are there, but I can actually move from position to position, and other people couldn't. And so that's when, it really showed. They're like, "Holy shit! The captain's actually telling me to do something." Because I'm not going to tell a guy, "Okay, hey, you sweep the floor," or "Hey, you, do timing and headspace on the heavy guns and stuff like that." I'm not going to do that. Some guys do. But I'm not gonna, because I got people between me and them who do that. And when you do that, you're taking away authority from your subordinate leaders, and the subordinate leaders are going to be there all the time with that small unit of guys. You may go and be with them because you consider them to be at the most critical area during a gunfight, but you're not going to always be able to do that. And when you don't do it all the time, and then when you finally do give commands, it's like it has a lot more power, in my experience.
Yeah, I love that. And so thank you for that answer. I knew it was coming, and I agree entirely with it. I got to ask you, is there this classic debate, is there a difference between just general military leadership, leadership by example at Camp Lejeune, NCO officer, doesn't matter, and combat leadership? And if so, what are the differences?
Well, the big difference is day to day, there's no fear of death. Whereas in combat, that's there, and that's huge. That's huge. And so consequently, it's a different type of mindset in that, you're not at the knife edge of life and death. Whereas when you're actually in combat, you're in a firefight, that's there because it's a geometry problem. These things are flying through the air at the speed of heat. And if you're at the wrong place at the wrong time, you could be dead. And they're the ones who are having to face that. And they're young kids, young guys a lot of times. And they're looking to you for calm. They're looking to you for, judiciousness. And you have to be able to provide that. the way to train your guys for that is live fire and movement. Now, people will say, no, you need to do force on force. We need to do, and force on force has its place and it's important. But if you do live fire, there's a little bit of that nervousness about the deadly bullets flying through the air, because fire and movement means you got to trust the guy behind you who's shooting to cover your movement. And at the same time, you have to. This is all something that has to happen in these guys' minds while they're in the face of the enemy. They not only have to worry about the enemy moving forward from position to position, covered position, firing position to firing position, to put effective fire on the enemy and get close enough to either stab him with your bayonet or frag him with a hand grenade or take his surrender. One or the other. And so the trust that you have to have with each other can only be done by doing fire and movement. I really believe in that. And it teaches other things to the men. It teaches them to know how to discriminate between when to shoot and when not to shoot. Now, you're not going to shoot because you want to shoot your buddy in the back. But on the other hand, that is easily transferable to not shooting because I think that's an unarmed woman there behind who's hiding over there. And so the Marines develop that type of fire discipline, which keeps them from shooting the wrong people as much as you can. And those confusing, because there's smoke a lot of times. There's, people that you're sweating into your face. Seems like we're always fighting these things in the hottest places in the world, No,
I agree. And I want to interject something here. I think the audience is picking up now that we know each other and we met at the basic school. And at the time, the basic school was loaded with brand new captains who had not yet been to the fleet as captains. And I believe when I entered TBS as a very senior captain, I was the only captain that had been to the fleet and actually had weapons company, rifle company, and all of that. And I remember having a big discussion one time with the TBS, all the TBS instructors were there, and I said something that's germane to what you're saying about live fire. I said, I just wonder if we're teaching lieutenants up here to teach their Marines, it's one thing about being aggressive and shooting, and don't shoot anybody that doesn't need to be shot. But they have to also be cognizant, once they pull that trigger, how far those bullets go.
Absolutely.
How far they go, and that they may, in fact, kill some friendlies a mile away. They don't even know that unit is there. And I saw a lot of blank faces there. And the reason why I said that was because I was in Beirut, and I remember I was in a landing zone, and I was talking to a one-star Marine Corps general, General Joy. And we were waiting for the helo to come in and pick him up. And behind us, we were on a street that had been blocked off, and there was a big sidewalk, and the helo was going to lay there. So behind us, there was cars parked on a curb.
Right.
We're talking, and all of a sudden we hear glass, bing, choom, and metal clanking. And what that was, and so we got down real quick, and I'm talking about a long line of cars, all the windshields and windows are getting blown out, and there's ricochets going everywhere. Someone fired a 50 caliber machine gun in East Beirut.
And that's a ways away.
Miles away. And let loose at something, or maybe they, the way that war was, it was East Beirut Christian, West Beirut Muslim. And so it was very common for the Muslim side to say, we're just going to shoot. And if it lands in East Beirut, victory. With artillery, mortars. And so some Lebanese Christian, army guy or militiaman probably said, let me tune up West Beirut. Bah, 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 bah. And he probably emptied a can of 50 cal. And by the time it got to where we were, I mean, it's God's intervention, another 10 feet, it would have cut us in half. And that's when I realized, whoa, because as you know, there's a maximum effective range of these weapons, but then there's the maximum how far they will go.
No kidding. Oh, absolutely right.
I want to pass that lesson on to the folks listening.
Yep.
You can coordinate all you want. Lack of coordination will kill you. But if you don't think you can't have a fratricide event of a unit 2 clicks away, certain weapons, you absolutely can. And the next lesson I taught him was, I was not aware until I went to Lebanon and started seeing some point A to point B shots, firefights, how strong a 7.62 round was.
Compared to a 5.56, absolutely.
A 7.62 round will go through a live tree that's 18 inches thick. Go through it and kill 3 or 4 guys on the way out. I could not believe it. 50 cals I believe. 50 cals will collapse a wall. I could not believe the power of 7.62. I couldn't believe it.
Especially our 7.62. That's 7.62 by 51, I think. But the AK is a 7.62 by 39. And so, like, I don't know if you did, but I had all my guys carry 6 sandbags, obviously without sand in them. And then because it cuts the number, how much they got to dig in half if you're filling sandbags. And one of those sandbags will not stop a 7.62 by 39. But 2 of them will. And that first day we were there, the first thing that happened on the furthest west position we were in was a round came through one sandbag, went through it, and hit a sniper I had named Corporal Farron right in the shoulder. Down he goes. And me and the first sergeant right away, we get him bandaged up. Well, the corpsman came right away, so we didn't have to do it. And he walked down the LZ, which is about, 100 meters away. And he's waiting for the birds to come in, but the birds wouldn't come in because of all the fire coming around, right? And so the one that came in left before he got there, and that's when they had Verge on it. Verge and his company gunny. And so that was an example of that, 7.62 round right through that and that sand flying everywhere, and that's absolutely true. The power of especially our 7.62s, like a sniper rifle, like a Remington 700 rifle bullet, unbelievable. And that's for sure a concern, absolutely right.
Well, it also, what you're talking about, and this is for, again, the young fellows out there, it's an understatement to say you have to be competent at your job. And so, okay, well, Colonel Jeff is saying we got to put sandbags up. Great. I got a sandbag up there. I got a wall of sandbags. I'm in a building and we got a wall, one row of sandbags inside the building, inside the room we're at. Well, there's an actual engineer formula to tell you how many sandbags thick.
Exactly. Oh, absolutely
will stop certain rounds. And by the way, once a 50 caliber 7.62 hits that, I think there's 3 sandbags wide you're supposed to have. Once it starts hitting them, it degrades it because the sandbags, so just because you're good on the initial salvo doesn't mean you're not going to get through.
Oh,
and you got to think about all of this stuff. But I want to go on to the next question.
Okay.
You've observed a lot of combat leaders, and obviously you were a really good one, Jeff. Based upon your observation and your studies, because you're an extremely well-read guy on this topic, I mean, you prepared. I consider you one of the prototypes. You're the guy that by the time you first heard your first shot in anger, you had prepared. I don't know if you could have done anything more to prepare for it. You had read, studied, talked, picked people's brains. I mean, you were the quintessential student pre-combat and all that. So based upon all of this, are there any traits, characteristics, personalities, leadership styles that you feel most of the best combat leaders have in common?
Yeah. You got to be sensitive to the attitude of your men. You got to be sensitive to that, because sometimes they're going to be up and sometimes they're going to be down. and they're afraid. They're going to do good if you train them right. But you have to be sensitive to that. And it's like there's a famous play by Shakespeare, Henry V, where the guy he kind of gets the pulse of his guys the night before the big battle. And this really hit me because this is exactly how I felt. And I know it's how you felt, because before you led your guys in the Desert Storm, we had a guy who was your 81s guy. He told me about your pre-combat talk to the men. What was his name, man? He was at TBS with us.
Gary Russell.
Gary Russell, yes. And that was a great thing, I mean, it's like, because they're all scared. Will I do good? Will I live? And you gave him that Henry V speech. But the thing that struck me about that wasn't so much the speech that day. It was the night before. He's filled with self-doubt himself. He's like, oh, Jesus, don't, God, don't let the bad things that I've done or my father did visit on my guys tomorrow. Steal their hearts, And that's a real thing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's talk about the negative side, Jeff. There are ineffective, weak, and even bad combat leaders.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've observed any. I know you've studied them and all that. Do they share any traits and personalities and habits in common?
Yeah, we had, without getting too much into the recent wars, but Iraq and Afghanistan morphed almost from trying to achieve victory to normalizing the fact that you're going to deploy to Iraq or Afghanistan. And so I think you had the attitude of a lot of battalion commanders. What can I get out of this, and what can I lose from this? And so as we got past the 2006 timeframe, in Iraq, and then later on we got past the 2012-13 timeframe in Afghanistan, not as many people were being killed as earlier, and killed and wounded. So the most likely thing that would happen would be a scandal where Marines shot the wrong people, and the battalion commander would get blamed. So we had battalion commanders, and I'm not going to name them, but I could, and I'll tell you offline. But who first thing when someone was killed, bad guy or whatever, they do an investigation on their guys. Now sometimes it's good to do an investigation. I know good commanders who do that for the opposite reason. They want to protect their guys, right? But there's some who just they do it so that and one of the guys who worked for me at IOC, he was like me. He was the weapons platoon commander at the EI company, supported the training of the lieutenants. His name was John Maloney. And John, was a great guy. He'd been an enlisted guy at 1-5. He ended up being a company commander at 1-5. He got killed as a company commander at 1-5 in Ramadi. So John, I remember I'm talking to him, and I said, "Hey, John, where are you from anyway?" He says, "Well, sir, I'm from Springfield, Massachusetts." I go, "No shit. My Uncle Chet." Remember my Uncle Chet, right? He was married. His wife's name is Joni, and her maiden name is Joni Maloney, right? So he goes, "Oh my God, Uncle Chet, my great Uncle Chet, my great Aunt Joni is my mom's sister, my grandmother's sister." The guy's like distantly related to me, That's how the Marine Corps is, And John got killed there in Ramadi, but not that he was doing anything wrong. But I mean, I know that that was a very intense place for a couple of years. Ramadi was like almost worse than Fallujah. Yeah. You know what I mean? And
I know of. First of all, I believe that he was the first, and to date, and hopefully never again, he was the first posthumous recipient of the Leftwich Trophy.
Oh wow!
Yeah.
You're right.
Yep.
Man.
And I visited IOC a few years ago to do research on a combat leadership book.
They got a
I'm
bar
writing.
named after him there.
And they have a kind of like a shrine to him. He was that well respected.
He was such a good guy. Always had a picture of his kid on his desk. Very good instructor, tough in a room of pain, man. You know, I remember when I first took over IOC, we're going through turnover stuff. That's when we brought John up, but most of the guys were fighting in the room of pain with the lieutenants, were the skinniest, smallest dudes I had. So I'm like, I want to get, and I know what it is. My guys are all great guys, but I think people, they're not afraid of pain. They're afraid of embarrassment. That's why a lot of officers don't, I was training advisor teams, and I go, hey, look, you got to get in there and do timing and headspace, Lieutenant Colonel. Well, hey, look, buddy, I know you forgot how to do it, right? So have one of your corporals show you how to do it. They'll love you for it. They'll love you for it. That's another thing, to be honest with them about that type of stuff, because it's going to come out. When it comes out, you're trying to hide it. That's the worst thing. You talk about negative leadership. Did you ever run into these guys who say, I can physically beat up every one of my men? If you got a complaint, you can square off with me. I've heard guys say stupid stuff like that. Some of them are pretty good guys. They're just too full of themselves, Like, you know what, buddy? Yeah. You do that, two things can happen, and they're both bad. Number one, you win. And now you beat up one of your guys. The rest of those dudes, a strong proportion, are going to hate you for that. Number two, the worst thing, you get your ass kicked. Now what are you going to do? You'd be surprised how tough some of these little bastards are. You know what I mean?
You're exactly right. I got a sea story for that one. So when I first went in the Marine Corps, as you know, there were World War II, Korea, and Vietnam vets. And you too. You were about exactly a year behind me.
Right.
Some associate that with when the standards really started deteriorating when they let you in, Jeff. You know what I mean? And it was a big deal back then. Remember, I was one of the last ones that got the National Defense Ribbon.
That's right. I didn't.
You did, and that's how we. And so here we are with one ribbon, National Defense. We didn't do shit to get it, but when we would see guys like you, we would call you, man, you really are a boot. You know what I mean? Like, you don't even got this Firewatch ribbon.
I know it. That's exactly right. And I didn't get it until you went to Desert Storm, because we were in Liberia that first time. We never landed. We just went over there. And then the war came and went like a warm summer day, man. 4 days.
So here's the story. One old time World War II, Korea and Vietnam, 3-war veteran told me about this topic. He said, I went to boot camp in like 1943. The war is raging. There's, the Marine Corps went from, I want to say, like 75,000 to 400 or 500,000.
600,000 by the time it was over,
overnight. So he's in boot camp, and boot camp then was kind of informal, whatever the drilling. There was no DI school. There was no officer supervision.
They didn't wear the campaign cover. No,
they didn't. They didn't do that, and so, and it was old Corps. And anyway, long story made short, there was a tendency for leaders to say, hey, you want to go out back? I'll whip your ass. Let's go out back. Well, he saw his drill instructor, one of his drill instructors said that to some recruit that might have been smart enough or something like, yeah, you want to go out back? And yeah. And what he didn't know was that kid had been a really good boxer.
Oh yeah,
in civilian world, and he said
that's right.
When they went out behind the barracks, the old white elephants at Parris Island, we all went to the edge and looked, and he said that recruit efficiently and beautifully beat the piss out of that drill instructor. And really, just big. He was so accurate. A boxer against just somebody that's I'm tough. Yeah. And he said. That happened several times. He talked to more people, and drill instructors learned very quickly, be real careful about threatening some of these guys, because we got a lot of talent coming off the streets. And even if they're little guys, this guy might have been a really good boxer and you aren't. And educated fists are going to beat uneducated fists every
Absolutely
time.
right. Absolutely
Second
right.
thing is a personal anecdote. You know, you wouldn't know it by looking at me today, but back in the day, some would call me a physically imposing figure. You know, I was swole guy.
Frank Spivey said you wrestle alligators.
I can never confirm nor deny that. But anyway, you know, I was a Division I wrestler. You know, I wasn't very good, but I mean, my point is this: I was big, I was strong. And, you know, I think somebody looking at me in the bar would say, yeah, not that guy. I think he could fight. Well, my point is this. I knew enough from my background, and I had been in fights. You know, I grew up in an era where you were fighting all the time.
Yeah, for sure. I got thrown out of high school every year for fighting.
And the worst fights I've ever was in was with small guys.
Yeah.
I only started one fight in my life, Jeff. I think I was 7 years old. I started it, and this kid kicked my ass. I was begging for mercy within minutes. And I never started another fight, but I had guys start fights with me, and it was always a little guy who essentially said, oh, you're big and strong. You think I ain't shit. You think I'm like, no, dude. And we'd end up fighting, you know what I mean? And I got to tell you, a bunch of them, I just beat the hell out of. But a few of them whipped my ass like, holy, where did this Terminator come from? You know? So I learned very quickly, do not judge a book by its cover. So what I'm saying is, I did not go through my career saying, hey, man, let's go. You want to amplify that? You want to take this to the next level? No way. Because your point is this, and I'm saying this not to self-promote, but to talk to these young leaders out there. You may run into guys that's their MO, and you may think, well, I'm going to do that too, you know, because now you got a lot of kids coming in. They got this MMA, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I would have loved as a young guy. But my point is this, if you do beat the hell out of one of your guys, you're in trouble because that's not how Marines are led.
Right. Absolutely right.
If the guy beats the hell out of you, you have lost all credibility. You can't you can't say, Colonel, my corporal beat the hell out of me. Why? Well, I challenged him to a fight. You know what I mean? It's a no-win proposition. And so the lesson, and I know you agree with it, to the young folks out there is, I had an old Marine one time, and of course, some modern people, especially feminists, will recoil at this, but he used to say, relative to this topic, he was an old country boy, and he said, Etor, my grandpappy used to say that he would not ever have a woman, a dog, and what else was it? He wouldn't have a woman or a dog or a child that he had to beat to make it listen to him. And he said, that goes for Marines too. If you got to beat recruits or beat Marines to make them listen, that implies that you're going to have to be able to whip everyone's ass. Because if you can't, they're not going to listen. So anyway, I think we beat the subject to death. Any last comments on this?
Yeah, I mean, that guy, Gunny Stepp, the reason I stayed in the Marine Corps, I mean, he, you know, my best friend from there became a DA of Riverside County. We were always like, let's call Gunny. Finally, we got, you know, we're both drinking because we were nervous. He was especially nervous because he was afraid of the Gunny the whole time we were in Iraq. Everybody was, right? Except me, because I liked the guy. I mean, it's always bothering about what was this like in Vietnam. He was involved in that thing where Charlie 1-5 tried to get Jimmy Howard off that hill where you got the Medal of Honor.
Yeah.
And so, and Gunny was there, right? And but we're in the Marine bar. I'm 19 years old. I'm drunk. I'm being an asshole. And Gunny Stepp is there in his NCOIC civilian uniform, black coat, black trousers, wine red polo shirt, cowboy boots, and a cigar. He always had a cigar. And he goes, Corporal Kenney, you're being an asshole. Go to bed, which is upstairs, right? And so I go, all right, wait a minute, Gunny. Aren't we on liberty right now? He goes, yeah. I go, that means you can't tell me what to do, when you're drinking. He goes, is that right? I go, fuck yeah, I'll kick your ass. We'll go outside. I'll kick your ass right now. So I'm drunk. And my buddy's like, Jeff, cool your jets. We go outside, and I'm standing there, and Gunny, with his cowboy boot, flips it up a little bit, just enough to hit me in the nuts. Not real hard, but enough for me to go, ooh, bend over. He grabs my shirt, pulls it over my head, and pushes me. I fall over these like lawn chairs that are out there, right? And he goes, he didn't even take the cigar out of his mouth. He takes the cigar out of his mouth, and he goes, Corporal Kenney, I don't know if I can take much more of this ass whipping. What do you say we call it a draw?
I love him.
He goes, you guys take this asshole up to his room. He never even mentioned it again. Oh, my buddy is here in my ass for like weeks,
Oh, yeah.
But he could have ended me right there,
Yeah, I love it. Well, our time is running short here for this first episode, and we've already agreed, you graciously agreed to come back for more.
Absolutely.
But I want to close out on this topic. I know I had these questions and more, but I boiled them down to 4 questions that I had before I ever went to combat. Not like the night before, I mean years before. And these questions I think everybody has. I'd be curious to see if you had them. The question, and I'm going to ask you your thoughts on them. I think the average guy, first of all, I think most Marines and soldiers, guys that want to be SEALs or something, there's still something in us as ancient warrior DNA where we don't want to get killed, and we may not necessarily want to kill people, but we want to prove ourselves in battle.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is, but it's there. We want to do it. In fact, when I was a Marine, and even now, if I meet someone that joins the military, not the Air Force or, I'm not dogging them, or the Navy or something, but if you join a Marine or a soldier and you don't aspire to that test, I do think something's wrong with you. I do think less. I think less of you. Like,
Absolutely.
wait a minute, you don't want to be a warrior. You just want to come in for the GI Bill. I do think less of you. That's just me.
Me too, man.
But I think most guys do want the challenge, but then they get in and they start hearing stories from guys like you and, and then during the long wars,
like
they start
me and you, like we heard from guys in the 70s,
real deal. I mean, nothing I did compared to the guys that I idolized.
Yeah, I know.
But even during the long wars, Iraq and Afghanistan, these boots are coming in and they're seeing lance corporals with 3 combat deployments, 4 Purple Hearts, 2 combat axe ribbons, and they're thinking to themselves, here's the questions. Will I be too afraid to perform well under fire?
Right.
Will I remember what I'm supposed to do when bullets are flying past my face? Will I be able to handle seeing my friends killed and wounded? And when the time comes, and if appropriate, will I be able to kill another human being?
Right.
What's your thoughts on those questions?
Well, that really came home to me when I was my second tour in Iraq. I was an advisor team leader, and the Iraqis were really not good, and it was a lot of work to try and get them to be good. And the only way you could get them to do that stuff that you just talked about, that all young men worry about, was to be there with them. And there's only 11 of us. So we had to switch out and separate from each other. And I know, that was rough for the guys doing it. I remember throwing up next to the vehicle every morning, knowing that we're going to go out there and there's a good chance that some of us aren't going to come back. I remember being sick to my stomach, like Henry V, not worrying about my personal but worrying that one of them would get hurt because I forced them to go alone with, or, just one or two of them to go with Iraqis when the Iraqis were doing something. And thank God the first guy to get hit bad in that team was me. Because then afterwards, more people, I had three teams underneath me besides then. We ended up having, I don't know, 6 or 7 KIAs. But all that shit happened when I was in Bethesda. And I remember thinking, oh my God, that would be the worst nightmares. I'm sending these guys out. I'm out myself. But, I just worried that they were doing something I told them to do would get them killed. And there's a quote by Rudyard Kipling that you just made me think of when you were giving your intro to this. I learned all my heroes and wanted the same to play my part in the Patriot game. That's a great quote. And, that's what I think you're driving at. We want to, it's not so much doing it, it's in your life to have done it.
Yes.
And, and you can wear that, and that's the great thing about Marines. It's unlike, he's not there for an education. I don't care what they say, especially if he's in the grunts. He's not there for an education. He's not there to learn a trade. He's not there to learn a skill that's going to make him a lot of money. He's there because inside of himself, he thinks, if I go through this machine, if I go through this process, this gauntlet, remember the Indians just make guys go run the gauntlet? If I go through this gauntlet, I'll be a better person at the other end of it.
Yeah.
I'll be braver. I'll be smarter. I'll be more generous, And just for wanting that, they deserve a ticket to heaven.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I also think, this is me talking, I want to get your opinion and let the young guys listen to this. You join an organization like the Marine Corps and you end up in a combat arms unit, they're dwindling now, Jeff. Mm-hmm. Only the senior guys have combat experience. But in that environment, any form of combat experience is strong currency. Mm-hmm. And despite what anybody says, you can be a really great Marine. I know great Marines that did 30 years, never were in the right spot at the right time. These are good Marines. But I know in their heart that they're proud of their service. They volunteered for all wars possible. There just weren't any. But I know in their heart, they feel as if there's a couple boxes unchecked, that they never truly had the opportunity to earn full membership in that tribe, so to speak, Right. And so it is very, very powerful. And I would just say that the lesson of that is, young guys, be careful who you idolize, because we and you both know, there's guys wearing all sorts of stuff on their chest that haven't done anything. There's guys that they just got the eye with their ribbons, and those guys, some of them did heroic stuff. Yeah, that's right. Just weren't recognized for it. But then on the flip side, the guys that do have that experience, and I mean even a tiny smidgen of experience, know the influence that you have on younger guys, and you are obligated to do this, what you're doing here, Jeff. You are obligated to share your wisdom with everybody that might benefit. And that's the number one reason why I chose to go to the basic school. I had an idea that I was going to retire early because I had enough time. And I wanted to dump whatever meager experience I had. I wanted to throw it out there, And you did. I remember you used to come over to IOC a lot to talk to us. And usually not everybody's there. Usually not even a majority. So I was in there one time, and it was after graduation, and me and Mellinger, we weren't able to go to graduation because we were doing something early in the morning with the lieutenants going through. So we came back, and the guest speaker at that breakfast was Colonel Ripley. Yeah, I remember this.
You remember this? So me and him and Mel and you, he was talking about this book he had about 3-3 during their time in Vietnam. And he was pushing that, but he said some great stuff, I guess they rolled up on the guys at Getlin's Corner from 3-9 who got over or Bobo got the Medal of Honor and stuff. The guy who leg blown off, jams the stump of his leg into the ground and delivers fire, and he found those guys, and some of them were nailed to trees by the MVA, tortured to death, and I remember him telling us that, and we're there because, I remember you coming over and talking about not just the combat stuff, but you'd say to a guy, if you say something stupid like that at a battalion meeting, you'll never recover. You remember that?
Yeah.
I can't remember who you're talking to. I don't want to mention his name now. I don't want to embarrass him.
No, I know exactly who that was. You guys were young and idealistic, and I remember the sea story here. I remember talking to a captain, hadn't been to the fleet yet, but he was well read, and he fell under that spell of, I've read 3,000 books, therefore I'm a lock. I'm going to kick ass as a company commander. When I get to combat, they're going to recognize me as the young Clausewitz and all of that. He was a good guy. But I not only tried to share combat lessons, I tried to share garrison lessons. And I said, all that's good. I mean, you'll have a great mortar chute or live fire chute hooked up and all that. It's all ready to go. It took you months to get it in the range. It's all locked on. And then a week before it goes, your battalion gets tasked with providing troops for the regimental change of command. And guess what? Half of your company or your entire company is going to spend 4 days rehearsing, and then you're going to do the change of command, and the live fire chute is done. And he looked at me and he said, that's bullshit. You can't allow that to happen. And I'm like, well, I agree it's bullshit. Good luck telling the battalion commander, sir, I refuse to do that. I'm not going.
Yeah, he's not going to be impressed with your integrity.
And he just looked at me, and I could tell, all right, I'm going to shut up. And I'm just going to shut up with this old fart here. That guy became a general officer.
Good.
He became a general officer, and I wonder...
Not by doing that. Not by saying...
I wonder, along the line... how many training events got canceled for his changes, commands, and all of that? You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah. The guy we just had change command at the MEF, I'm not going to mention his name either. They had 1,000 guys who had to all be over 6 feet tall. How bad is that, man?
Yeah, well, I don't know who this guy is.
I'll tell you later.
I can tell you right now. I never was. What's the point of that? I mean, I understand eighth and I. It's a dog and pony show, so you got to have tall guys and all of that, But in this case, right now, let's face it. Who is he trying to impress? There are great Marines that are 5'2", 5'4". Man. I mean, I don't get that. So anyway, I don't want to slander the guy. I'm sure he had his reasons. By the way, I wasn't invited to the change of command, so that must mean something. You know what I mean?
Well, remember Christian Wortman? Remember that name?
I know the name. He's
a lieutenant. He's a lieutenant. Went through TBS and LC while we were there.
Okay.
Christian is the new MEF commander. 3-star.
Oh, wow.
How old does that make you feel, man? He's one of the great young officers. Well, young, fuck. I'm 68 tomorrow. So he's got to be like 48, 49, something like that. So he ain't really young anymore, but he's a great officer, And I remember when you first showed up, Will Constantini saying, hey, I saw this guy check in. I saw him at the Hawk, and he said, Mike Etor, and he kind of read up Grenada, Beirut, and then, coming to TV. He was all full of, he's not the type of guy that demonstrated to you, but he told me, hey, this guy's like the real deal, not this bullshit. Because he used to get pissed about the whole maneuverist and the miss bullshit with guys doing these stupid flanking moves. And would you do that? Would you do that if there's real bullets flying around, like you were just saying, a couple minutes ago? No, you wouldn't.
Yeah, well, we got lulled into that. We're getting sidetracked. We could do an episode on this, Jeff, the whole maneuver warfare thing. I was a maneuver warfare guy. I was in 2nd Marine Division when Al Gray was there, and I had Ray Smith, one of the best combat leaders ever. In the Marine Corps, who was a proponent, and it just meant fighting smarter and pushing the decisions down to the squad and all of that. And so it wasn't because the Marine Corps was all screwed up. And they really revolutionized how we thought. That, Ray Smith told us, the battalion officers, and he said, maybe the staff NCOs were there too. He said, and this is a heavily combat experienced guy, Navy Cross, couple Silver Stars, famous guy. 2nd lieutenant, took over a rifle company in Hue City.
Alpha 1-1.
Yeah, and kept it. And had two Medal of Honor recipients in that company during that action.
Gonzalez, Alfredo Gonzalez, and Canley, right?
Canley.
Yeah, he's my hero, man. He was there at my Leftwich thing, and because I asked him to, and he was when I got that Wheeler Award thing out of the IOC, and he was our guest speaker, and he goes, "Where are you going?" I go, "Sir, I'm going to 3-8. No shit, I might see you again." And like a month later, he took over for General Sheehan.
Yeah.
Remember him?
Imagine.
Yeah. And Ray Smith took over. We had to change the command out in LZ somewhere over by the Verona Loop.
Well, Ray Smith, where I'm going with this is he gave us great PMEs. I just was a sponge,
Yeah.
But I remember him telling us that the most important person in the 2nd Marine Division was the squad leader.
Yes.
Not the platoon sergeant, not you lieutenants, not you captains, not me. Squad leaders. And he said that because we had a big exercise coming up called Solid Shield.
Oh yeah,
which for really battalion and below was a bullshit exercise. You were just go to do a blocking position. You stay there for 7 hours. Go do a block. It was just a terrible exercise. It was a waste of time for us. And so a lot of colonels, battalion commanders and all of that, company commanders, they wouldn't send their guys to school. They wanted the full complement for Solid Shield so they could star and shine, except there was no, it wasn't that kind of exercise.
Yeah. Was that the one up at Fort Pickett? Along the Nottoway River?
Well, Solid Shield, I think, was all the East Coast seaboard. It was Navy, Air Force. It was combined. It was really a joint exercise. And when it boiled down to the Marine Rifle Company, it was worthless. You know what I mean? It had no training effect whatsoever. But it was just terrible. So anyway, Squad Leader School at the time was a really good school. And a whole bunch of quotas came up. And we sent almost every squad leader in our battalion. And so I'm telling you, I went to that exercise with none of my squad leaders, very few of my team leaders, and that was through the battalion. And Ray Smith said, "I see the look on your face, captains. We'll be okay. We're sending them," because remember, we're going to Beirut several months from now. And I'm telling you, there's nobody more important than squad leaders. These are the guys that run the show.
That's the super squad competition. Remember when it was, you had one squad that would win back up until they just made it you did division, that was it. But I remember that. And so that was the ideal. Who's the best squad leader? What's the best squad,
Yeah. Well, listen, Jeff, our time is cut short here. I knew it was going to be just like our usual conversations, minus the filthy jokes that we usually tell each other. You know what I mean? So, I don't want to get thrown off of YouTube. So when we stop recording, we can tell a few to each other and make a few laughs and all that. But that said, I can't thank you enough. And before I let you go, what are you doing nowadays? And I think people are going to want to learn more about you. Have you been on other podcasts? And how can people get in touch with you?
Yeah. Well, I have. I was on for a couple of years. I was on this thing that Mike McNamara did, where me, him, Tim Lynch, and Will Constantini would talk about issues and stuff. And then that kind of just went away. But so I don't do that anymore. But the other thing, what I do though now, I work for what used to be SOTG up here in Camp Pendleton, and I started as a training advisor teams, because we still had advisor teams, 18, 19, and going to Iraq and so forth. And so that kind of went away. And because I got experience doing NEO, non-combatant evacuation operations, I teach that. And also just good old R2P2, and sometimes the planning process that really defines what the MU is. The idea of soup to nuts, 6 hours, you get a mission, and within 6 hours, you got recon going out the door to accomplish it. And everybody knows what to do, and that's not easy, getting the Marine Corps and the Navy to cooperate on something as complex as amphibious ops. So I do that too. And I'll tell you what, my wife is like the North Vegas version of Margaret Thatcher. She won't let me just stop working, you know what I mean? Because I'm ready to just, do something else. Become a doyen, whatever they call it, at the Mob Museum in Vegas. I love that place,
A docent.
Yeah, whatever. See that? I don't even know what that is. But I know it. I know every time I go in there. I've been in in the last 3 or 4 years, I've been there 5 times. And I always end up correcting the guy who's one guy said, yes, 2 guys from Chicago changed everything in Vegas, Meyer Lansky and Ben Siegel. I go, sir, those guys ain't from Chicago. They're both from the Lower East Side of Manhattan. And Ben Siegel was born in Brooklyn. He was born in what's the name of the place? It was a Jewish neighborhood in Brooklyn, and then they moved over. And so, but I know about that stuff. Remember we grew up with it, where we, people telling us about this and that. Etor, the older Etor's probably telling the younger ones, stay away from. That's where Willie Moretti got shot in the head. It's 1953. So. Right.
Exactly. Well, all good, Jeff, and I'll reach out and we'll do part 2. We've got a long outline to get, but I knew we wouldn't get through the whole outline. I prepared you for that.
I'm sorry. Yeah.
But don't be sorry. You're sharing gold, my friend, and humbly you're bringing out, for whatever it's worth, some memories for me and all of that, and so it's all aimed at, if something you say sticks in some guy's head 40 years from now, because whatever the internet's going to look like, this video will be out there. And you'll be long gone, but there's a chance that your great-grandson will watch this and other episodes someday, or anybody's grandson, and listen to one tidbit like, I never forgot that guy, I can't even remember who it was, but I listened to a podcast one time, and this old fart said this, and now I'm there, and I'm going to do this or not do it. And you could have a material influence on some young NCO, some young lieutenant in combat, scared shitless, and remembering to put the right amount of sandbags up front, or to no matter what, dig deep, or no matter what, just because they're surrendering and walking away doesn't mean you're done with them. Don't let your guard down. Those lessons that you shared and all that. So my friend, I can't thank you enough. And for the audience out there, I hope you enjoyed this podcast. Listen very closely for Jeff Kenney, part 2, 3, 4, 5, and however many you'll be willing to do, Jeff. We'll make you a franchise player here, And as a way of thanks, I'll send you a mug with my picture on it. I only do that for
great.
special.
I already got 2 anyway, but that'd be good. I'll have a 3.
There you go. All right, my friend. Thank you. And for the audience out there, thank you for your time and attention and all that. We are rounds complete for this episode of the Combat Leadership Podcast. Thank you.
Thank you.
We hope you've enjoyed this podcast. Please subscribe, rate, review, and recommend to your friends. Please visit our website at combatleadership.com. Until next time, remember the words of the ancient philosopher Plato. Only the dead have seen the end of war.